honored today because longtime friend, colleague, business partner, Danny Enny is on the line with us today, who is the owner of Mirasee. And it's a course development and coaching company that is really successful. It's definitely international. You guys are based out of Canada. And Danny has just launched this book, Teach Your Gift. Yes, I have 2 copies because I think it's that awesome. And when I knew that Danny was launching this book, I said, I have to live stream and interview you. This was months ago. And so here we are. Thank you for being here, Danny, and for giving me your time in the middle of a very successful launch.
Oh, the pleasure is all mine. Amber, you've been a great friend and a great colleague for a long time. There's nowhere I'd rather be. And I'm very excited to be not just with you, but with all the people who have the very good sense to follow and listen to you.
Ah, that's so nice. Thank you. Teach Your Gift. Okay, everybody, this is the book. How coaches, consultants, authors, speakers, and experts create online course business success in 2020 and beyond. Before we went live, I was telling Danny that there could not have been a better time for this book to drop. Teach Your Gift. You can get it on Amazon right now. It's already a #1 bestseller. In fact, Danny, share the good news about what you hit on Kindle. So exciting.
We hit number 16 in the entire Kindle store during our kind of initial big 5-day push, which is, I mean, if you track these things, the top 100 on Kindle are generally all romance novels. So even being there as nonfiction is like weird and unheard of. So I'm very gratified.
Well, so talk to me about what has happened, what the stages of launch are, what this is all building toward. And then I want to get into more about this book, of course, but what's happening in the middle of your launch? And I ask because we have a lot of authors that are in the audience right now, a lot of speakers. And, since I participate in directing book launches, they'll probably be curious to see how you're launching with such success.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, tens of thousands of people have come on board for your campaign. So talk a little bit about it if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely. So the book, and like I'll give a bit of a behind the scenes of the structure because your folks are interested in book launch structures. Yeah.
Just a little bit, yeah.
Awesome. All right. So the book came out. Our launch began on Thursday of last week, so we're 6 days into it. The book came out 2 weeks before that. So the book came out a couple weeks early so that I could, we didn't do any big promotion, but just I kind of told my inner circle, my students, my clients, people who are friends, like, hey, my book is out. Go if you want to grab a copy, if you want to leave a review. So by the time our official launch rolled around, there are already a few dozen positive reviews and there was some traction. So, if all of a sudden everybody shows up and downloads it, and thank you. But so it doesn't trip up Amazon's algorithms, like what's going on? It just opened up and, all of a sudden everything.
Right.
So then we did the 5 days free on Kindle. So it's exclusive digitally through Kindle. We had a lot of, we mailed with our audience. We told our students that they can go check it out. A lot of partners supported us as well, which was very kind and generous of them. I think we had maybe something like 60 partners on board helping with the promotion.
Awesome.
That went on for 5 days. The book did very well. We've had just over 31,000 people download the book. And now we're leading into a 3-day bootcamp training, which is happening on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And then after that, we're going to open the doors on a training program that is basically, if you like the ideas in the book and you want help doing it and doing it quickly and seizing the opportunity, you can join our course business masterclass, and that's going to be going on next week. So that's kind of the high level structure.
Okay, everybody, this is what we need to do. Sign up for this boot camp. Obviously, go get the book today. We have Alexis in the comments below. She'll drop some links. Get the book, go to the boot camp, and then if it's a fit for you, which I actually happen to be very confident that it would be, then you can go on into what's happening next week. One of the reasons that I'm so confident right now isn't just because I greatly respect Danny and I've worked with him for years. I know the type of operation that he has. I know how the quality of his staff. I know how everybody is so deeply committed to the mission and in service. I am extremely careful about the people that I align myself with Danny Any was like a no-brainer. And I was saying, thank you for your trust in me, because Danny has such an incredible heart. His wife, Boomy, their entire team, they deeply care about the success of their students. They work overtime to make sure that their students are successful, they're getting results, they're taken care of. And what he talks about in this book is just an extension of that. So Danny, talk a little bit about what Mirasee does as a whole, and then we'll get into the book, just so they have some context.
Yeah, sure. And thank you. I'm blushing. So I'm very gratified by what you've said, and the feeling is mutual. So thank you. We're an online business company. So people come to us, they are coaches, consultants, speakers, authors, experts, and they want help growing their online business in general. And specifically, they want to take their expertise and monetize it through the form of an online course. I'm the online courses guy. So that's kind of what people come to us for primarily. That's basically what we do as a business. And it dovetails really well into what the book is about. I've written books about online education before. I published a book in 2015 called Teach and Grow Rich. It came out in second edition in 2017. In 2018, I published Leverage Learning. So this is familiar stuff for me. And the reason I decided that it's time to write another book is I found myself meeting a lot of very high level, very high caliber people, the kind of people you would meet at the TED Global Conference or at the Thinkers 50 Summit or places like that.
Mm-hmm.
And they would come to me and say, I'm thinking about creating an online course. And I'd say, that's great. There are a million good reasons to do that. Tell me what is interesting to you about that. Tell me what your plan is. And they'd share their thinking. And I'd have this like head smacking moment where I'm like, you're working from a playbook that's like 5 years out of date. And a lot of what you just said doesn't really work in today's world. So,
Wow.
unfortunately, as online courses have become a lot more mainstream and a lot more popular, a lot of people who have, frankly, minimal experience in the space, they've kind of jumped in and said, well, I've made $5 online once. Let me teach you how to build an online course, because they see everybody's looking for it. So it just feels like this, big well of opportunity. It's a gold rush. But the challenge is that there's a difference between doing something once and having a deep expertise, right? I've turned on a lot of lights in my day. That doesn't make me an electrician, right? And so there's a difference between having done something and really understanding how it works. And so people are very good at saying, well, this is what I did, but they don't have the perspective to say, here's how the landscape has changed. Here's what is different now from the way it was when I did it. Here is what, even if it was those days, like my situation is unique or special. And so I wrote this book to kind of bring people up to speed on where's the landscape now? What does the opportunity look like today? Who is actually buying online courses? Who is succeeding in creating online courses? What kind of online courses? How do they go about doing it? What is the marketing that makes sense today? So that's really what the book is. It's a guidebook for someone who's like, I want to create an online course. I think it can be a good part of my business. How will that work? This is the roadmap.
I can barely contain my enthusiasm over this, and it's strictly genuine, because every single day I'm talking to authors, speakers, coaches, consultants, and everybody they're still a little stunned, they're scrambling, they still don't have a clear roadmap of what to do. I'm over here every single day, Danny. I go live, I'm speaking like crazy in lots of different ways, and I'm saying, now is the time to get market share. Now is the time for positioning. Now is the time to attract qualified buyers in, to develop personal connection with them. But then the question is, well, what do we do with them? Well, you got to have a course. You have to have something that's relevant to the time. So I definitely want to pick your brain on that. Like, what is the landscape now? Something that I read, I have tons of notes here. But something that I read that was really powerful to me, and I'll have to possibly look back to it, is how it evolved, how to attract people in quickly, how to have a world-class course. Because I think that the idea that people have is that it needs to be this huge, magnificent experience and this big course with all kinds of modules and worksheets and templates. And people really like, where does that come from? And is that really necessary? So these are some of the things that I want to get into today, Danny. Let's start with, what's the landscape now? So you drive these people in. We'll talk about the marketing angle in a minute, but if you drive people in, like, what are people expecting to see? What's the landscape now as opposed to where it was even a few years ago?
hmm So over the last 5 years, as the landscape of online courses has matured, we've seen a kind of polarization where courses have kind of split into two groups.
Okay.
On one hand, you've got information courses,
Yep.
right? So if the perfect analog for this is a book in a bookstore. That's a traditional information product.
Okay.
So imagine you go to a bookstore, you find the book that purports to contain the information you're looking for. You take it to the register, you pay for it, not a lot of money because books are not expensive, and that's because it doesn't cost much to replicate information. And once you pay for that, you're on your own. The author doesn't owe you anything, the bookstore owner doesn't owe you anything, the publisher doesn't owe you anything, right? That is how information works. And there are lots of courses out there that are essentially a glorified book. It's, maybe video, it may be
Mm-hmm.
multimedia, but it's just information, it's one directional. And that's a race to the bottom, right? There's no accountability for outcomes. The price is getting lower and lower. The days of like, here's a bunch of videos in a membership site, please give me $2,000, good luck and goodbye. Like that's not the reality of the world today, right? You've got a lot of very serious, very qualified, very credible experts teaching online courses for 50, 100, $150. If you go on platforms like Udemy or
No
Masterclass,
kidding.
right? Like that's not a space where it's easy to be competitive, right? And the economics, the math of those information only courses, it's tricky. It's very hard for someone who's new to the space to get in and win competitively. Because let's say that you're interested, my favorite example is screenwriting, but use whatever topic you want. If you're a screenwriting instructor, you want to teach people how to be successful screenwriters. If you say, well, I want to create a $100 course that's a bunch of information about screenwriting, you're competing with Aaron Sorkin, who wrote The West Wing and A Few Good Men, right? You're competing with his credibility and his expertise and the distribution and production platform of Masterclass, right? There's no
No
way you're going to win
kidding.
that fight.
No way. Yeah.
So the information space, that's not a good opportunity. But then on the other hand, there's education. That's the other direction that courses have split into. And if we compare a book in a bookstore, let's compare that with a university class. And I mean, that's its own space that's going through a lot of disruption right now. But
No
in
kidding.
concept at least, right? You enroll at a class at a university, you're going to pay a lot more money than you would for the book. And partially that's because of market forces and educational inflation, but also it's because there's a lot more that goes into creating that experience. You're paying the instructor, you're paying the TAs, there's tools, infrastructure, resources, and grounds. There's a lot more that goes into creating that experience. And you can certainly sign up for that course and stay home and do nothing, and that's totally on you. But if you show up and you do the work, it is reasonable for you to expect that the instructor and the institution behind that instructor will support you in getting to your objectives, right? It's a partnership. And that is what delivers a real transformation. So if we're looking at online courses that are just information, there's not much opportunity. But if we look at the next step, if we say, okay, so I'm the aspiring screenwriter and I've taken Aaron Sorkin's class on Masterclass, and it was interesting and I learned a couple things, but I'm not a fundamentally better screenwriter than I was before I took the class. It's, a book doesn't do that. A bunch of videos don't do that.
Right.
And I'm thinking now, where can I go to go deeper? Where can I go to actually advance my skills? Who's going to help me? Well, not Aaron Sorkin. Aaron Sorkin is busy with other things. And that's where there's an opportunity for you, the screenwriting instructor, to say, if you want to go deep, if you want to really advance your skills in your career, you're going to pay me $1,000, $2,000, $3,000. It's going to be an involved process. There's going to be work. There might be coaching. There might be feedback. There might be support. But it's going to be a great experience for you. It's going to be a profitable experience for me. Everybody wins. That's where the real opportunity is.
Wow. I love the distinction that you just made there. That's really important. Guys, for those of you watching right now, what I'm sitting here is just thinking about how many people would benefit from knowing this information. There is a lot of outdated information online. Let's just be honest. We all know that. What I appreciate about Danny is he's always been somebody to look ahead, well in advance. I know you've been looking at the education industry for a while now, and it doesn't surprise me that here you are paving the way for the future of online courses. So obviously you're talking about that in your book, Teach Your Gift. But everybody, for those of you watching, I would really appreciate if you could help us course correct the information that's coming out online around courses. Tag somebody in the comments below, tag 3 people that you think, oh, I know a speaker, I know an author or coach or consultant that might benefit from hearing this information about where courses and engagement to this level, transformation to this level, where it's headed. You got to tag your friends here and let them know this is happening. Start a watch party in the bottom right hand corner. If you're on Facebook, if you start a watch party, it will notify your friends that this live stream is happening. I think that we have a responsibility to share good information with other people, which is why I'm here with Danny today. And I want to transfer that responsibility to you as the viewer, to let your community, your friends and colleagues know that this is what people need to know about right now. Something that bothers me about the information courses is that it has kind of tilted our industry a bit, and it's created a little bit a lack of trust to some degree. People buy into courses, they put all of their hopes and dreams and aspirations and expectations on the line, and then usually people leave and they're disappointed. They didn't get the outcome that they were expecting, and that's putting a bad name on the industry as a whole. And Danny's out here trying to correct that, saying, well, we now need to go into more of an educational format that's actually going to develop this relationship with our students to create transformation. And what do you think that's going to do to your reputation online if you are actually getting results for your students? I just want to leave you with that thought for a moment. So
I
Danny,
think that's a really important comment to make because, as the landscape has matured, like if I look back to 7 years ago, the people who would come to me say, I want to build an online course. There were people who had knowledge, they had expertise, but there was a lot of opportunity seeking, right? It was like the how can I make money online crowd, which was never kind of my cup of tea.
No.
What I find is that more and more, as the opportunities become more mainstream, as it's only been a couple of years that you stop a random person on the street, you say, where can I take a course? And they'll say anything other than a university. Right. So it's only starting to become mainstream. And as that's happened, the people who are looking to create online courses, they're real, credible, qualified experts in their field. And that's who should be creating an online course. But the thing is, if you are a qualified, credible expert in your field, you have more to lose by getting it wrong. Like if you're a nobody who knows nothing and nobody knows who you are, then you try to build something and nobody notices or they don't like it, but it doesn't matter because there's no credibility to lose. If you are a recognized expert in your field, there's more risk in doing it wrong, right? If you've published 3 books and you're known by your peers and your colleagues as an expert, and you put out a course that is subpar, that affects people's impression of you. So that's part of what's driving the need to really do it right.
Yes, thank you. Let's say that we have a course. For sake of time, I'm not going to dive too much into the marketing, but I will say that there is a point here about how to create a marketing machine that automates the selling process so that you can watch enrollments come in without lifting a finger. That's something that I have on my sheet here. I want to skip that for a moment though, because the marketing of it is extremely important. I talk a lot about marketing. Buy the book, learn what Danny has to say about the marketing as well. One thing that I'm curious about is how do we go about pricing our course? This is a question I get all the time, Danny, because you see people out there pricing valuable courses, let's say at even 97, 197. How do we compete with that? And especially if our course is like our work from the past decade and it's meaningful and it's substantial and we really put the effort in, are we really supposed to just price it low? And what do we do? How do you fix our thinking around that?
Yeah, it's a great question. There are a bunch of different ways to approach this, right? So, the decades of experience and expertise that go into producing the course, they definitely matter. But ultimately, what really matters, the most important thing is the value of the outcome to the student, right? What is the outcome that I want them to have? And so I never recommend that people start with pricing. You always want to start with the design of the course. And you want to start by asking yourself, instructional designers call this backward integrated design, but essentially when someone's through the course, they're done on the other end, what do I want them to know? And then we're going to take it a level deeper. We're going to ask not just what do I want them to know, but how well do I want them to know it? And that's a level of depth people often skip. It's really important
Love
because if you
that.
ask me, if you say, Danny, can you teach a course on the story of Hamlet, right? I could say, well, it depends. If you want the general big idea, yeah, I could probably tell you the story in 5 or 10 minutes. I can do that, right? It's, basically the Lion King with people instead of instead of lions. But if you say, no, I want a course that will teach me to recite Hamlet, it's like, okay, that's a much more involved undertaking. If you
Yeah.
say, I want a course that will help me perform Hamlet, that's even more involved. And then we're really getting to a place where I'm probably not the person to teach that course, right?
Yeah. Good
So we
point.
need to know, how well do they need to know it? And when you think about how well they need to know it, you can start designing the learning journey. And there are 3 steps in a learning process. So the first step is consumption. That's when you consume the new information. So you watch the videos, you listen to the audio, you read the text, you attend the lecture, etc. And that's really important. That's a foundation, but that's just where it begins. You learn about things by consuming information. You don't learn to do things. You don't develop competence at that stage.
Mm.
Competence comes later. It comes in the second and third stages. The second stage is application. So I take what I just learned and I do something with it, right? And that can be theoretical application. I'm doing worksheets and exercises. It can be practical application. I'm doing real things in my business and in my life. And then we integrate the knowledge through feedback, right? As to what worked, what didn't, what needs to change. And that feedback can be just the logical consequence of the application, right? If I'm learning how to skateboard, then the feedback is from concrete and gravity, which is not fun. Or it can be more nuanced. It can come from a coach, from an instructor, from a peer, from a reflective exercise or process. So that's kind of the potentially more detailed part. And the more in-depth the knowledge you're trying to impart, the better you want them to know it, the more you have to spend time in that place of application and integration. So we start by designing that. What do I want them to know? How well do I want them to know it? And what do I need to build into the process for them to, for me to be confident that I can deliver that outcome? Then you ask yourself, what's it going to take for me to do that? Because it might involve, some of your time, which has a cost. It might involve, other resources. It might involve
Right.
whatever it is. And so then you have a sense of what's it going to cost you to deliver this experience, and you can start pricing your course. And a really easy kind of starting point rule of thumb is that your retail price is going to be about 3 times your cost of fulfillment.
Oh.
And that's because you're essentially going to take your retail price and split it 3 ways. 1/3 is going to be cost of fulfillment. 1/3 will be contribution profit, right? So that's, paying
Yep.
your overhead and maybe profit in the bank if there's enough volume. And the last third goes to customer acquisition. And then you have a sense of what you can afford to do in terms of marketing as well.
Gosh, that's so smart. I love that model. I can channel in my audience and they're thinking, this all sounds great, Danny, sign me up, but I don't want to do it. I've got enough going on. I'm overwhelmed. Can you just do it for me? Or how much can you do for me? I want to talk about what the boot camp is going to look like this weekend and how you can help people move through this process. So that on the other side, not only do they know how to go about it, but they've already gotten through the process.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll give you the good news and the bad news. Do you want the good news first or the bad news first?
The bad
Everybody
news.
wants the bad news
The
first.
bad news. Rip it off like a Band-Aid.
So I get asked all the time, can someone just build my course for me? And
Right.
the answer is no. That's
No,
just not a thing that you can do, right? Because
I agree. Yeah.
we talked earlier, there's a difference between information and education. So you can get someone to write your book for you, right? And in that same way, you can get someone to create an information course for you. It won't be amazing, just like someone who writes your book for you won't be as good as if you wrote it yourself, probably, but it'll
Yep.
be good enough. But on the education side, it's too involved of a process. So that's the bad news. You can't just say, I don't want, I'd love to have a course, I don't want to do it, can someone else do it for me? The good news is that the process doesn't have to be that lengthy. It can actually happen pretty fast, and you can be really efficient and focused in terms of putting your efforts where they're going to just return the best results. And that's what we're going to talk about on the bootcamp. So it's a 3-day intensive training. I'm going to spend 1 day going really deep on the opportunity. How do you know if this is the right opportunity for you? How do you go about pursuing it, et cetera? The second day is going to be about designing a great world-class course. What goes into that? And then
Hmm.
the third day is going to be about marketing. It's about filling your course with paying students.
Perfect. And then what can they expect from there? I mean, I don't want to and properly ruin a surprise. But if people want more than that, even, they love what you have to say, they're committed, they know that they need this course, they know that they want your help because you're the best, you're the one to go to for this. How can they then work with you or your team to then, have that accountability and support as they go through building their own course?
Sure. Well, I can't share too many details because it is a surprise, but we are opening the doors on a brand new course building training program next week. And on the bootcamp, I'm probably going to share some details so people can jump the line if they're so inclined. So we do have a very cool training program opening up. It combines a lot of hands-on support to get your course launched and do it quickly, with a lot of resources and training on that next level marketing piece. So how do you really spin up that marketing machine that brings students in, I don't like the word automagically, but once
Yeah.
you've built it and it's working, right? So to create that system and that infrastructure. So it's all in there, and we'll have a lot more details to share. Anyone who wants to learn about that should start by grabbing the book or registering for the bootcamp so they have a sense of what we're about, and then go from there.
Yeah,
And I will share one thing.
Yeah.
So we decided to do something interesting with this book. So, it's on Amazon. You can get it in paper, hardcover, Kindle. There's also an audiobook, but you can't get it on Amazon. The way to get the audiobook is to get either Kindle or paper. And then right inside, there's a page that says, if you want, you can get these special bonuses, including the audiobook. So the audiobook is free for anyone who gets any of the other formats.
Oh, that's awesome. And leave a review. Honestly, it's an easy read. It's a pretty fast read, but it's packed with valuable information. So leave a review too. That all help each other out, right? Like, we're authors, speakers, we need to help each other out and get the word out. I'm mindful of the time, Danny. Is there any last nugget that you want to share, that if there's just one thing that you want to get out to people, what would it be?
That now is the time. Right. We were talking before the call began that, with the current health crisis, like, there's never been a better time to do this. The world is changing, and this is where your followers, your audience, your community, it's where they need you to be. And, it's really important. I feel like there are a lot of people who are kind of bunkering down and saying, I want this virus to be over. I want things to go back to the way they were. And we don't know how long it's going to take for us to get to a new normal, but we do know that the new normal is not going to be the same as the old normal. And whenever there's a big crisis, things change. There's a great example of this that I read a little while ago in Simon Sinek's new book, The Infinite Game. He talks about Victorinox, the Swiss Army knife company, and how they adapted around 9/11, right? So 9/11 happens, and the first thing that comes out of that is that you can't carry Swiss Army knives on airplanes anymore. So their sales just go through the floor. And they could have very easily said, well, let's just wait for this to blow over. Let's wait for things to go back to normal. I mean, this is a company with 100 and whatever years of inertia behind them.
Yeah.
And if they had done that, it would have been a disaster. But instead, they said, well, what else can we do? And they evolved to the new reality. And so they expanded into kitchen knives, and they expanded into luggage, and they expanded into watches, and they expanded into fragrances. So you too can smell like the Swiss Army if you so choose. And they've done phenomenally well because they looked to the way the world is going to look. Whenever there's a big crisis, fortunes are made and fortunes are lost, but there are not a lot of fortunes that just stay the same. So it's really a choice that all of us have to make is, are we going to evolve and innovate and come out ahead in a position to help a lot of people who need our help? Or are we going to let a lot of this happen to us? I want everyone to be in that first category. I want everyone to be the driver of their destiny. And an online course in this world where everyone is looking to, how do I do things online? How do I develop my skills? How do I make this evolution? This is really where a lot of people need to be right now.
I completely agree. And I just thank you so much. I value everything that you have to say, Danny. It doesn't surprise me at all that more than 30,000 people have a copy of your book right now, because you have such respect in the marketplace. And it really comes from this humble place of just service and giving. And I really appreciate who you are, how you've chosen to spend your time and your career. And definitely thank you for spending time with my audience today. Guys, You have the links below. Go buy the book. I think that this is a really important time to get a course, and there's nobody better to learn from than Danny. So I appreciate it, Danny. Thanks so much, and best of luck for the rest of your success with your book launch. I know you'll crush it.
Thank you, Amber. It's really been my pleasure and my privilege. Thank you for having me. And thank you to everyone who's watching this. I hope it's been helpful.
All right, guys, we'll see you in the comments. Have a great day.